Morena, everyone. Welcome to the Northland Regional Council December meeting, obviously the last one for the year. Nā mai haere mai. First up, we'll go to housekeeping. There's no real issues there as we're Zooming. And obviously anyone that is in a building with others or a room with others, adhere to the COVID alert guidance that applies. So we'll move to our karakia, and any councillors that would like to join me, we'll make a start. Kia ino tātou. Tēnei au. Tēnei mātou. He kai koni hera.
He kawenga i ngā whakataunga i ngā tikanga ki uta ki tai.
Kia rewa.
Rewa.
Iwi katoa. O te kō. Huie tai.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Marty. We'll move on then to item 3, which is apologies, and we have no apologies today. So we don't need to do anything there. So before we, conflicts of interest, declarations of conflicts of interest we'll take as we go today. So I'd just like to make some opening remarks before we get into the rest of the meeting. So as this is our last formal meeting for 2021, I would really like to congratulate all NRC staff and councillors on a very productive year, despite the obvious COVID-related restraints and the huge strain that central government has put on local government in multiple ways. Our capacity and capability have certainly been tested, and I think that we are all due a very well-earned rest over the summer break. So I really hope that people are able to do that. I'm sure that councillors will agree with me when I say that our staff have worked well above and beyond, and for that we are extremely grateful. Thank you. As Team NRC, I think that we have worked particularly well together with respect, cohesion and participation. Those are the words that spring to mind anyway. I'm sure there's plenty of others. There are many business as usual and special project outcomes that have been completed to a very high standard, and many more in the pipeline. We do have a lot ahead in 2022, so buckle up people, which will again mean that we have to dig deep. I encourage us all to make sure that we share the load and see the work ahead as opportunities that have come knocking for us. Please be safe, take care of yourself and all members of our communities, residents and visitors. Parikiri e miti. Merry Christmas, everyone. Okay, we'll move on to our item, which is item number 5. On page 6, confirmation of minutes, 5.1. Do I have a mover and seconder, please?
Yes, Kitchen, I so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Colin. Seconded, Rick. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. So any matters arriving from those minutes? Arising. Did I say arriving? Arising. No. Okay. 5.2, receipt of the action sheet. So there was only one action there that I saw. And we're still waiting for an update. There's no further update on that, Colin?
Colin Dale is online. I'm not sure why he's not responding, but I did check in with him, and he did go back and ask for a response.
Okay, all right. We're still waiting. We'll take that as we're still waiting on that.
Yeah, so, apologies. I confirm what Chris has just said is correct.
Okay. So there are a couple of accreditation places, though, aren't there, Colin? I had a look at it the other day.
Yes, that's correct.
So it's not as if they're not there. But we just want to find out a little bit more information. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it is quite a formal, structured process to go through.
Yeah. I did make some notes, but lost them anyway. So could I have a mover and seconder for that action sheet?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I just had my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Justin, didn't see. I'll move and second, and then I'll.
Okay.
Yeah. Marty, and who was seconding?
I'll second.
Kenny. Terry.
Terry, thank you, Terry. All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, Justin.
Yeah, just a comment there, Madam Chair, is because I had brought this matter before the council and before staff. Could we just expand our thoughts on this matter, because accreditation might be quite a onerous undertaking. I fully support the staff investigating it and finding out if there are accreditation systems, but it might be possible for us to set up, just like a contractor workshop scenario where the council runs workshops that explain the rules around earth moving and highlight, the circumstances where, wetlands in particular, what the rules are with wetlands and the national policy frameworks for wetlands, and that if those contractors attend those workshops, we can give them a certificate, of attendance, recognising that they've been through that module, and it just builds that relationship with contractors. It builds awareness, and that amongst contractors of what the rules are. And I think a lot of the proactive ones will use it as a way to sort of promote their businesses that are environmentally sustainable. So I'm just highlighting potentially another approach that we could take if an accreditation, like a proper accreditation through IOSO accreditation isn't a viable way forward to resolve this ongoing issue.
Colin, I'll go to you.
So through the chair, I'm happy to take on board those comments from Councillor Blakey, because we do have ongoing training sessions with earthworks contractors, and we can build that into it. They may already get a certificate of completion for that course, but I can look into that, and if that's the way that council would prefer to proceed, then I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Colin.
So if that's the case, Councillor Blakey, Justin, are we okay to take that off the action list?
Nah, Penny, my questions are, Madam Chair, the questions I would like to ask is the frequency of the workshops and what the reach is, because, there are a lot of earthworks contractors in Te Tai Tukaro. So before I'd say remove it off the action list, I'd want some sort of, some information from staff as to the frequency of the workshops and the reach of the workshops and how we'd go about promoting them. I wouldn't expect that to be done, in a hurry. I'm aware it's extra work for the staff, and I'm aware that there's huge workload on. So, but those are my comments there, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it there for now. And Colin, you'll do that through the Land and Water Working Party, or will it be the?
Oh, it's probably the planning and regulatory, because it's more of a compliance issue.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Okay, we'll move on to right, here we go. Item 6, which are the financial reports. So 6.1, we have recommendation to receive the report. Could I have a mover and seconder, please?
Yes, I'd like to move. Thanks.
Move Jack, seconded Rick. Thank you. Any comments or questions? No, I just noticed that, and I'll come to our independence next. So we've had, from what I'm reading, we've had investment losses for the last, well, not losses, sorry, that's the wrong word, but we've had, they've come in under budget for the last 3 months, and we've only really got up to the end of October figures. The observation I did make that the under budgeted amount, which is 800,000, is actually very similar to the lower than budgeted salaries, which is probably they're possibly linked, but just interested in any comments from you, Stuart, or Malcolm, or Bruce, on how we, what's the thinking as to when do we start putting things in place or start using our operational reserve, or do we need to with these ongoing under budgeted investment figures? Stuart?
I think if we have to expect that the go forward on the portfolio of managed funds is likely to show some revaluation discrepancies that are going to impact on our what are seen as the returns. And I mean, you've only really got to see broadly and globally, as well as in New Zealand, that the asset values that determine those returns have, in just about every major category, either leveled off or declined. So we've had increasing interest rates for the last 6 months globally. We've seen that has obviously impacted on bond markets. And we've also seen other material asset prices fairly much level off, and in some cases decline. There's if I look at some of those macro charts of those values, you can see it quite evidently. Now, that really does indicate, when you've got a rising inflation environment, that there's going to be some pressure on those returns. And that will be reflected by those revaluations that occur every month in terms of the values. And I think that's been, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, as Jonathan has said quite well over the course of the last 12 months. You're going to get that kind of volatility in terms of values, especially when we start to see broadly financial markets starting to change, and they are changing. And we've seen that with interest rates, and that's clearly where things have begun. So I think that we have to expect. What can one do about it? Is a very, very difficult question, and I mean that's the one that even when I alluded to the fact that the performance of our funds have been fantastic over the past 12 months and in previous years, and they've all been in relation to our SIPO. So, we have an underlying SIPO that provides the rules of engagement for Jonathan and his team and for the fund management that is done. And you can't just essentially turn around and say, right, this is no longer the environment for having fund management in that way. You can't exactly just go and turn it all into cash. It's not possible. It's not in our SIPO. And so these are the constraints that are there. We're going to see this every month. We're going to see these sorts of changes occur in terms of the returns, given the way that the returns are expressed.
Okay. Thanks, Stuart. And I do know that we are going to change our monthly meetings to the 4th week so that we have more up-to-date information. And I did wonder, did we need to pass that today at all or at any stage? But Danny, I'll go to you next, and then Malcolm, and then perhaps Bruce.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I'll just probably following on from what Stuart has said. I mean, I think when we had that first lockdown and the markets were unprecedented, and that preceding 12, 18 months were probably more what we may have anticipated in terms of whether it be interest rates or the market changes. I think that's what you're feeling now, and you'll continue to see that for the next 6, 12, 18 months. So it's not unexpected. It's probably we had the gains of that first 12-month period through to 30 June. And now what we're seeing is kind of the back end of the markets getting hit. And I think you're going to see the same with a new variant in terms of Omicron, that you are going to have the markets taking a hit as well. So it's probably more in terms of what Stuart has said. I'm just restating what he's said already. It's more that it's what we do as a result. We're still in line with our SIPO. So it's more, does council take a more conservative approach in terms of its long-term and short-term investment, or does it start accessing that reserve? Because the question marks, particularly in terms of the ongoing issue around our staffing and the pressure on us to do more when we can't actually recruit staff. That's not to say that we haven't been able to recruit staff. It's just that you're in the same market competing with a limited pool of human resource, that you are competing with other central government as well as local authorities for the same sorts of people. So it's how do we then attract them, and maybe it's a time to consider dipping into the reserve to pay more, or at least consider the option of our personnel costs versus the operational cost. So that's probably all from me, Chair.
Thank you. And certainly I know those conversations are going on. If I could go to...
sorry, Chair, I did have one other comment. Is that okay, or should I wait until the end?
No, you can go now, Stuart.
It was more of a question looking at the November financials, and I just wanted to ask with management, are we likely to see reduced revenues and increased costs if we model a higher assumed rate of inflation? And we are seeing at the moment the impact that inflation has on the population in relation to disposable income. We're seeing the impact of higher interest rates and mortgage rates. Do we, in your financial models, where you generally use a BERL, I think you normally use a BERL assumed inflation rate. But if you were to put that inflation rate up by 1%, what would you likely see in terms of the potentially reduced revenues and, importantly, increased costs associated with that? And is that something that we might want to be thinking about just in terms of looking forward over the next 6 to 12 months with council's cash flows?
Thank you, Stuart. We're probably getting into property and investment committee meeting stuff, but I'll go to...
I think we are.
Malcolm
okay, that was really in relation to this agenda item. Sorry.
Sorry, I wasn't just talking about you, Stuart. I was just the conversation, but we'll get some comments from staff, please.
Yeah.
Chair, so maybe I'll tackle the inflation one first. So I think we can accommodate the likely inflation that we'll have in the current financial year within budgets. However, there's a clear indication that we're going to have to relook at a number of items, specific items, particularly as part of the annual planning process, which will kick off in earnest in the new year, that for the financial year starting 1 July. I mean, some of our costs are going to escalate in terms of double-digit inflation for next year that will just simply not be able to accommodate within the existing budgets as they sit in the LTP, and that's a debate that we'll have to have with council early in the new year. In terms of the questions the chair asked, I think any relationship currently between the reduced revenue and the salary variance is purely coincidental. They're being driven, I think, as both Stuart and Danny have alluded, by quite different things. The revenue is being driven by the markets. The salary variation has been driven by both the impact of COVID taking longer to recruit, as well as the skill shortage in the country. So at the moment, there's no need to dip into the operational reserve, because we essentially are not able to spend the money at the rate that we're still earning it faster than we're spending it. Council and staff have done quite an extensive exercise that we've reported back to council on those parts of our planned delivery program and service program for this year that we're not able to deliver because of it being seasonally related, and the impacts of COVID over the last 6 months have meant that we actually can't go back and do that work. We've at the same time identified all of that work that can be accelerated in an attempt to try and get it completed before the 30 June financial cutoff. So that's really where the focus is on at the moment, is to try and accelerate the delivery of the work that we would have expected to have done by now that we haven't achieved yet. So, Chair, I think we're hoping to be able to bring a significant amount of that back in terms of the under expenditure on service delivery as a result of COVID.
Okay. Thanks, Malcolm. So I'm sort of hearing we don't have to do anything just yet. Not that I was thinking that we did, but I just thought it would be good to make councillors aware. Anything to add from Bruce? Hang on, I just want to go to Bruce next, and then I've got Justin, Colin, and then you, Rick.
Thanks.
Oh, you just put yourself on mute, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As I say, nothing from me.
Okay, thank you. Justin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just got a couple of very quick questions, just really in terms of the our Sharp Hill Country program. You know, if there appears to be are there underspends there? I just want a little bit more clarity around the lower than budgeted subsidies on the Sharp offset of 150k offset with lower than budgeted expenditure. Because I'm just trying to get my head around like whether or not there's just a lack of appetite and uptake of those opportunities under the Sharp program from landowners, and whether or not it's part of that conversation around whether or not these subsidies are adequate enough to get landowners on board. Just thinking about the Whangarei Urban Hours project, when we lifted up the subsidy, we got much greater buy-in. So that's the first question, and then the second question is more probably to Malcolm and Bruce. You know, with the significant variance in salaries there, like the fact that we haven't been able to, you know, get people into the positions that because we've been out via the LTP, you know, and asked for the money in terms of the long-term plan. You know, how does it work under the Local Government Act if we've sort of gone out to the community, asked for the rates to create these positions? Can we reallocate that money into other operational aspects of the council, or does it have to stay within that, you know, the salary pool or for those positions? So those are two questions.
Okay, Jono, would you like to go answer the Sharp one?
Kia ora, Chair. Kia ora, Justin. Couple of answers to your question there. Part of it has been yes, landowners seen a whole lot more regulation coming down the pipeline towards them. I guess they've been a little bit cautious in spending money where Sharp was looking at doing around retirement fencing for high erodible land when they're seeing a whole lot more regulation coming down the pipeline. So that's part of it. Part of it is COVID. and part of it has been our high turnover of staff, so our capacity to be out there engaging as well. What we do have coming for the Land and Water Working Party first meeting in the new year is all of our co-funding projects. We're planning on bringing a paper to that working party just to provide an update of where we're at with our 3 different funding projects. So we can delve into it in a bit more detail there, but it's a combination of factors.
Yeah, thank you, Jono. And I just, when you come to the land and working, or you probably could answer it now. Does MPI allow carryover, Jono, between years if there's an underspend? Like in terms of
yeah.
contract?
We have been successful on getting carryover from year to year, but when the project is completed in 2 years' time, there's no extension at the 2 year, so we need to try and catch it up before the 2 year end. And we've got some targeted promotions that we're developing at the moment to try and ensure that there's no money unspent at the end of the program.
Yeah, thank you, John, and I certainly appreciate the challenges COVID's presented and you know those regulatory issues farmers are facing, and you know staff moving on from the organisation and capacity. So thank you, John.
Goodbye.
Second answer, Malcolm.
Chair, so there is no salary pool as such. Because salaries are such a major expenditure item for council, being approximately 33 to 35% of our total expenditure, we report on that to give council visibility of that as a expense item. But in terms of the question around reallocation, so it would depend on where the money comes from that has been allocated to those salaries. So, for example, if we'd rated for biosecurity work and the shortfall in payments of salary was within the biosecurity team, you can take that money and allocate it to the acquisition, the purchase of materials within biosecurity, but you can't take it and move it, say, into rivers and likewise. So to be able to answer your question completely, Councillor, we'd have to do quite a detailed analysis of where the funds are coming from to be able to determine. So anything that comes from a targeted rate can't be spent for a different purpose. However, if there's a portion of that, and there will be a small portion that is funded either from commercial revenue as a subsidy or from a more general rate, that with that small portion there's greater flexibility. But it's not as simple as just saying we underspent by 800,000, therefore we can go and spend 800,000 on something.
I didn't think that was the case, Malcolm. And I personally would like a little bit more detail because it's quite a significant sum, Malcolm, of $800,000. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Colin Kitchen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mine's not a question, just an observation and a comment. In relation to the salary variance, and what it's telling us that we are, short of staff. And what I want to do is just shout out to our present staff. They're now staff, they're managers for what they are doing. Short-staffed, economic situation at the moment, COVID. They're the mihi they're doing is really, really appreciated by me as an elected member, and I'm sure by all of our staff, so all of our councillors. So I'd just like the respective managers there to go out to their teams and say thank you, thank you, thank you. And as Chairman of Audit and Risk, I'm a bit, we do get worried about our staff, say their well-being and that sort of thing. So Christmas coming up, I'm sure they'll have a good break. So thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Rick, and then Jack.
So thanks, Chair. Look, I just want to say, I think you alluded to it. There's no need to panic. We're there for the long haul. So it obviously, and I think Stuart did comment. We are, and also Jonathan did as well. We're obviously in for ups and downs, but we're in the long ride. So we've just got to hang in there and carry on what we're doing because we're doing it very well, as attest to how the fund is growing. In fact, it's grown in the number of years that Malcolm's been here from the original 10 or 12, and now it's over 60. So well done on that. And I think the second thing is, as I say again, our investment and property meetings, we're welcome. All councillors are welcome to attend. And I know we were getting into a little bit of detail there, and you did allude to that as well, Chair. So I think it's important that if you want the detail, then it's important to attend those meetings. So thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, Rick. Jack, and then we'll wind this up, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Madam Chair, I think Malcolm's answered part of it. We do need to decouple the investment portfolio performance from staff vacancy thing. And obviously, we'll be having another look at the investment portfolio in our meeting in the first meeting in the new year. But regarding the staff vacancies, I'd like to remind councillors that the manager of corporate services, or Bruce, provided an excellent report to the Audit and Risk Working Party, I believe, and about meeting the market. I think it's pretty good, and goes a long way, should go a long way to addressing our concern. But we definitely do need to meet the market, something that we've discussed quite a lot, and it's a subject dear to my heart, because I'm not only concerned about the implications for project delivery and capital works delivery, but I'm concerned about the impacts on stress on current staff who are managing it with reduced numbers and a higher workload. So I have a brief question is, I think Malcolm's pretty well answered is, we're free to use consultants in the place of missing where we don't have staff, aren't we? Because we don't have a specific staff budget. Is that correct?
Chair, I think again the short answer is I've got a certain amount of discretion that council has given me to be able to move funds and employ consultants if we were really not able to find a staff member to undertake a certain function. But at the same time, I mean, we try and be reasonably disciplined about that and only use it where it's addressing a short-term, lack of skills or lack of availability, than having a general principle of being able to use consultants instead of staff.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll round that one up, and I think that I know it's a broad link, but I think both of these things have been brought on by COVID to a large extent. That was the only link that I was making there, just to clarify. Okay, so we've done all we need to do is passing and seconding and things, Chris, haven't we? I can move on to the next item.
Got a mover and a second, and we just need to put the motion, please.
Oh, okay, all right. So just that other question about moving to our meetings to 4 weekly, we don't do that here?
No, so that's encompassed in the paper that's coming up about the meetings calendar 2022.
Oh,
I've already built that in there, so if council approves that calendar, we've taken that into account.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, all those in favour of accepting the financial report?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. All right, decision-making matters, number 7. So 7.1 is the appointment of alternative director to Regional Software Holdings Limited on page 19. And we have 3 recommendations there. Would someone like to move and second? Thank you, Amy. Moved, seconded, Justin. Are there any questions or discussion? No, pretty straightforward. So that's you, Bruce, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. 7.2, page 21, Te Tukura Māori and Council Working Party appointment of replacement member to the Water and Land Working Party. Justin, I'm assuming you'll move that. Thank you. Seconded Marty. The 2 recommendations there. Waimari Yep. Any discussion or questions on that?
Well, Madam Chair, is Victor resigning from TT Mac as well, or just from that one job?
I'm not sure. I thought it was TT Mac as well, but I'm not sure. Anybody
So
from
in that
staff?
case, can a letter of thanks be sent to Victor, because he's been a very active and, you know, well schooled up member of TT Mac for a while now. So it'd be nice if he was, you know, a letter was sent. Thank you.
I had a feeling.
I understand he hasn't resigned, but he has his proxy there that one of staff may say different.
Oriol, are you there?
I think Oriel's dropped off the link, and I'm not sure myself, but I can see if I can find out that clarity while we carry on.
Okay, thank you. Justin, did you have something to add there?
I would just total call Jack's corridor that we certainly write and acknowledge to Victor his contribution to the Land and Water Working Party. You know, even that can be done regardless of whether or not he's staying on to TMAT, because he was certainly an active member of that working party, and he went out of his way to engage with the council in those spaces. So I'd like to just support what Jack is saying.
Yeah, that's a lovely idea. Thank you. Chris, could we make a note to ask Oriel to do that for us, please? And perhaps work with you, Marty. And that, or you, oh no, but you, Justin, wouldn't it? Yeah, Justin. Sorry.
Penny, if you could sign it, I think it would be really good coming from the chair, our leader.
Okay.
You know, just a note of thanks to Victor. So I'm happy for you to sign on my behalf.
Okay. Yep, fine to do that. Okay, Chris, we'll make a note of that. Thanks. Okay, so all those in favour of recommendations 1 and 2? Carried. Thank you. 7.3, page 23. Regional Public Transport Plan 2021 to 2031.
I'd like to move that.
We have 3 recommendations. So moved by Rick, seconded by Justin. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Rick, did you want to make some comments?
Look, I just want to say a lot of work's gone into it, a lot of public consultation, a huge amount of work from the staff. Really good to get it to this level, good to get it ticked off now. We have had a good look at this in council, or had an opportunity to have a good look at it. And I do want to thank the staff for the contribution they've made. We will have some more, I believe, at that. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Rick. Any further commentary or questions? No. Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. All right. 7.4, which is page 100, which is the, I see Phil, you're on the line there, solar energy expansion at council's owner-occupied properties. We've got 3 recommendations there. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved, Marty. Thank you, Rick. Seconded. Phil, would you like to, Jack wants to say something, but Phil, would you like to talk us through?
Thanks, Chair. So we're looking at where we can supply solar across the properties that we inhabit. So we'll have a wee look at the 2 Kaitaia properties, although we don't use a lot of energy up there and they are older, so it's possibly ones we'll pass up. When we do the Waipapa Service Centre, we'll certainly look at solar there, just like we have at Kaipara. The decision today, though, is on an expansion of the solar power provision here at our Water Street offices, and an expansion of what we intend to do at our Kaipara Service Centre. And in fact, the current at the Kaipara Service Centre is already installed, but because we're building, probably is now the time to make the decision to do even more. So if I can break it into 2, the Water Street proposition brings us to, would mean that we're providing about, 25% of our weekday demand, which is all of our weekend demand. There might be a little bit of electricity that we generate in the weekend that we could sell back into the grid, but not a lot, because we've got more electric cars now. We're actually just drawing a bit more. The limit to what we do at Water Street really is useful roof space. So if councillors were to say, well, this is great, but we want to do even more, we could put some solar panels on top of the 4-storey building on that flat roof. The difficulty is that it's actually a bit hard to get at, but hard to fix down. It's got sort of bitumen there, and we just don't want to put any penetrations into the building. So as I say, this, if you say what's magical about 25%, what's magical about it is it's the total amount of the best roof space. My suggestion is that if councillors want to go ahead, that is funded out of councillors' discretionary budget, not the property reinvestment fund. And the reason is that the Kaipara Service Centre is a investment property which we rent out and get income from, and it's built with property reinvestment fund monies. Water Street, while it's arguably in a commercial building, council doesn't pay rent here, and picks up but does the maintenance, and any spending on the building is done by council and general rates. For example, the renovations that happened in the cafeteria in the reception area recently with KMR, essentially council funds those things out of rates because they in lieu of rent. Because we've always argued that the administration of paying ourselves rent's not worth it. So that's the argument for saying, look, the PRF doesn't fund the solar power on Water Street because Water Street doesn't pay rent, and PRF money is set aside for investment properties which give a return. So that's that one. For the Kaipara Service Centre, it's simply saying we've put up a certain amount of solar, and we think now's the opportunity to do even more. We can't determine if any will be sold back into the grid in the weekend in Kaipara because, of course, we don't have tenants in there at the moment. We just don't know how much power we're going to be using. But 1 or 2 years down the track, we might actually say, look, we can put more solar because there's plenty of room on Kaipara Service Centre as well. And if that were the case, then we'd come back to council at that time. So really the decisions are, do you want to increase solar at Water Street? And if so, how to fund? And the recommendation is from, essentially general funds. And then do you want to increase solar power at Kaipara Service Centre, and where's it funded from? And the recommendation is from the PRF.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Possibly could have taken these separately, but I've got questions from or comments from Justin, Jack, and then Marty. Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not supportive of the 40,000 for the Walter Street solar panels coming from the councillor's discretionary budget, because we simply haven't had time, Penny, to caucus the utilisation of those funds. This is really the first time that I've heard of this proposal. So yeah, I'd rather either defer the installation of the panels, or I'm personally not sure why the panels can't come from the property investment fund. I mean, it's an asset, a building asset the council owns, and this is essentially an upgrade, and it would add value to that asset. So I think it could come within the sit within the criteria of utilisation of the property investment fund. And the other thing really, perhaps this upgrade should have been incorporated into the long-term plan, when we were looking at, upgrades in terms of meeting climate change, our climate change strategy. So without wanting to carry on too long, that's my position on recommendation number 2.
Thank you, Justin. And that's where the capital cost of the renovations came from, wasn't it, Phil? It was in the long-term plan.
It was indeed, and Justin's suggestion that this be deferred, absolutely no problem at all. I mean, the opportunity is always sitting there to increase the solar generation, whether it's today or early next year or 2 years from now. So there's no urgency. We just felt that it was an opportunity for councillors to consider this. And I with climate change and all the rest, I know it's very high on the councillors' agenda to sort of, well, you want us to put these things forward, essentially.
And it could potentially become an annual plan.
Yes, yeah.
Request as well.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if we have to consult with the annual plan. I haven't kept up, but this might force a consultation. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next up is Marty. Oh, sorry, Jack.
No questions, Madam Chair. I was attempting to second the item, that's all. I don't have any questions, but while I'm on, I support Justin. I think this should come out of the Property and Investment Fund. Thanks.
Okay. Bruce, I see you've got your camera on. Were you wanting to answer that specific?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I wouldn't support the funding coming from the Property Reinvestment Fund because it doesn't meet the reserve criteria as described in the long-term plan. I'd suggest if you wanted to look at an alternate means of funding this, then you fund it as unbudgeted expenditure rather than through the PRF.
How much is in the unbudgeted expenditure?
Nothing, because it's unbudgeted.
Okay, so where does that come from?
Well, I think you're relying on looking at what happens at the year end, and if you don't spend the full amount in the equalisation reserve that's council discretionary funding, then that could offset that.
Okay. All right, so it's the same reserve but just delayed, potentially.
Well, it's out of our general funding.
Yeah, okay. Marty and then Amy.
Oh, I'm at the opinion.
Oh, sorry, Rick, if you, yeah, Marty, then Rick, and then Amy.
Thanks. Question, Phil, are we storing or using the grid as storage? One is because can there be any taking from us by the grid if the grid so wished? You know, what's the thinking of national production?
Yeah.
So just wondering about that independence and storage.
Okay, so we in both the Copra Service Centre and Water Street here, with the expansion of both, we're unlikely to generate enough to go back into the grid. It would be solely for our own use. There might be a little bit of weekend generation generated here at Water Street, which we can sell back into the grid. And for the sake of spending an extra $100 in the installation, we can have the ability to do that. But the amount is immaterial. We'll essentially be 7 days a week using everything we generate in both properties with the expansion. Yeah.
Yep.
Does that answer your question?
Just a slight concern about, I mean, over time, the remuneration by the grid has gone down, down, down. So just a concern there that it's driven by the market, and so they've got both control over sale to us, and then taking from us at a cost that they want to pay rather than what the true value is.
Yeah.
So it's just a concern that I have.
Yeah. So I think if we do this expansion on both properties, it's the amounts are immaterial, that they won't worry us. But if we came back to you a third time and said expand Water Street yet again and Copra Service yet again, we'll start actually probably in the weekend generating more electricity than what we use up, and that's when it will become that issue that you raise will become a material issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not on this decision. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. Rick, you're next.
So thank you, Chair. I think the issue here is we have not discussed it as in councillors only, but I still, to be fair, it is not a huge amount in terms of recommendation 2. And let's face it, our council buildings are used all day. It's not like we're in a residential house where you're not going to get the benefit of this. So I think as soon as we put them in, we're getting benefit. I don't see the point in hanging on for 6 months or a year. It seems crazy. The recommendation to staff is to go ahead with this. I think we should do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Amy.
Yep, I understand where Councillor Blakey is coming from in terms of the equalisation reserve and the conversation we're yet to have. But I think Bruce has given us an opportunity to use the unbudgeted expenditure so that we can proceed with the work, and then we can have that conversation and look at how it all sits. But I personally wouldn't like to see it delayed. And I agree with Rick, it's not a particularly large amount of money, and an opportunity for us to kind of step forward into that space. We've done quite a lot of work on our fleet strategy, looking at you know, getting electric vehicles up and running as a bigger part of our fleet. So it'd be really good to be demonstrating that we're following through in terms of how we power those vehicles. So yeah, I'm keen to proceed, but cognizant of Justin's point, so maybe we could take it initially from the unbudgeted expenditure, put it down as that, and then have that second conversation.
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt, but you can't, you have to wait till the end of the financial year, Councillor McDonald, before you can actually, you know, apply that unbudgeted, you know, sort that unbudgeted expenditure. That's my understanding. You can't do it now. So
yeah, can I just go to Malcolm to clarify some of that or comment, please?
Sorry, Chair, Councillor Blake is correct. I mean, you can't go and expend a future surplus that we don't have and is not realised yet. But what Council could do is approve the expenditure conditional on me finding it within existing budgets. And let me go away and see what we can come up with.
Okay, that would potentially come at the cost of something else, though, wouldn't it?
Possibly, Chair, but I mean, we've just had a discussion where I've reported that some activities we're not actually going to be able to complete this year. So I can't, off the top of my head, say that, you know, there is funds there for that, but potentially there could still be funds within the budget that we can't actually expend before the end of the year. I'd have to go away and do some work on it.
Okay, so Phil, what are the consequences of delaying this a couple of months?
There's no consequences to the Water Street. I mean, it's just sitting there as an opportunity, and councillors take that up as and when they want to. I think the Chairperson Service Centre, though, given it, I presume that's a separate, you'll treat it as a separate decision. It would be good if actually councils are on board and they are happy with the PRF, then yes, let's just go ahead and do that. We're building it now, and now's the time. So no problem with a delay on Water Street. I'd prefer if you're a strong erring towards Chairperson Service Centre, yes, then it'd be great if we could just do that. Yeah.
Okay, so I see that Councillor Yeomans, Joss is in the chat box. She's struggling with her voice box today, has suggested that we lay recommendation 2 on the table until next year, and I agree with that. I think I agree with all the comments, and I'm sort of hearing from councillors that they're not quite comfortable with giving the go-ahead just yet until we have a bit more information on where we can get the money from and afford it. Nothing wrong with the concept.
Yeah.
But we just need to figure out where how we can afford it and where it comes from.
Madam Chair, I completely support recommendation 3 for Kaipara, but I just think we're not going to engage any contractors till after the new year, so it could really lay on the table to February and then get it all cranked up. Then as Councillor Yeoman has indicated.
So, Chris, what's the process here? I mean, we've got movers and seconders for all 3, but how would we go about laying number 2 on the table?
Well, I think we're essentially looking at an amendment. So either our mover and our seconder, which are councillors Robertson and Stolwerk, could approve the change that we receive the report that number 2 lies on the table till February, and that we approve recommendation 3 for Chairperson Service Centre, or we have a new mover and seconder for that amendment. It sounds like Councillor Blakey was supportive of the other 2, so it can be either or. Okay, so
Rick and Marty, are you okay with laying number 2 on the table?
I'm happy to let it lie. Yeah, you Rick?
No.
Okay.
Okay, then we need to go down the amendment path.
I'll move that proposed. I'll move that proposed amendment as worded by our support staff.
And I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Joss. Okay, so we take a vote on that now, don't we, Chris?
Please, and if that's passed, that'll become our new motion on the table.
Okay, could I have a show of hands, please?
So voting for the amendment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2.
I'll abstain, Penny.
3, 4, 5. So we've got 5, and I think Joss was yes. So that's carried. Abstention from Marty. All right. So now we have. We can go back and take a vote on 1 and the amended 2 and number 3, unless there's further comment on number 3.
Sorry, Chair, can I just check with Chris? I mean, if the amendment's passed, is that not just become the substantive motion, Chris?
So it's just 1 and 3 then.
So the substantive motion is what we've just passed, so that the report is received. Number 2 lies on the table, and we proceed with KDC, Corporate Service Centre, and so that now gets put to the vote.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so if I could have a show of hands again, please.
Now, we are voting for 1 and 3, are we?
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Chris?
2 abstain. No, 2 is delayed.
Effectively, it is the 3. It is the reports received, we're delaying number 2, and we're proceeding with number 3.
Yep.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Oh.
Yep, carried. Thank you, everyone. It was a little bit messy, but we got there. Well done.
Oh.
So clear as mud, Phil.
Always clear.
All right, so we'll move on to 7.5 on page 105, which is, sorry. Okay, so the 2022 meetings calendar, which does include moving our monthly meetings to week 4 for the more
I'm keen to move that because I would like to talk to it.
Okay, so do you want to move 1 and 2 or just 1?
Yes, happy to move 1 and 2.
Okay, Singer, please.
Sorry, Rick, you wanted to talk
Sorry, no.
So just we'll take number 1. We'll take the report we've received.
1, yeah.
Yep. All right. Rick moved, Marty seconded. Thank you. And all those in favour?
Aye.
Right. Carried. Okay, so Rick, you wanted to talk to number 2.
Yes, I did. Look, I following the RTC meeting last week, and we have just notified Chris this morning. So we have spoken to the Waka Kotahi, we have spoken to the elected members, and we've spoken to the staff of both council and the RTC, and we are now we have agreed to go to a similar format of 4 meetings per year like civil defence. We have 6 meetings on the calendar. We are going to cancel the February and just get this right if Victoria's there. The February and October meetings will not go ahead for RTC. We are going to have 4 meetings a year. We will stay to the dates that are on the calendar, but in 2023 we will go to the same format as RTC, as Civil Defence, which is the quarterly meetings. These are a little bit out of sync because we don't want to change the dates and upset the calendar. The reason we've done this is because we are now going to proceed the RTC meeting with a workshop. In effect, we are looking at becoming more strategic in the regional transport area. So we would like to workshop the issues for the first 3 meetings. So we will have meetings at 9 till 10:30 in April, June and August. There will be no workshop meeting in December. So we are trying to, after discussion with the parties, we feel 4 is sufficient if we proceed them with a workshop. and we'll have agenda items, which we've actually already recorded several agenda items for the first one. So that is why I cannot move that meeting, because we are actually cancelling the February meeting, February the 1st, and cancelling the October meeting. So there will be changes to the program as outlaid in the report.
So that's basically an amendment.
It is an amendment, yeah, and Chris is aware of it. The RTC is obviously aware of it. The other elected members from the other 3 councils were supportive of this, as was Wakakatahi, as was NTA staff.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're a bit late to change the calendar, so that's why we do want to amend those. Oh, it's cancelling 2 dates, so I don't know if Chris needs to, or Victoria would like to comment on that, but that's where we're going. And in 2023, of course, we would have this quarterly. We would go March, whatever it is, June, September, December.
So is there a seconder for that amendment?
I'll second the Penny, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, so moved by Rick, seconded by Terry. Is there any further discussion? Victoria, did you want to comment?
Morning, Chair. No, I mean, Rick explained, we just wanted to make the meetings a bit more strategic, and we needed time to workshop rather than just having the RTC to stand alone. There's quite a lot of high-level subjects that we need to discuss, and it just gives us an opportunity to be able to do that, to keep the regional land transport plan heading in the right direction. So we support the move that the committee made, and yeah, because the RTC meeting actually came after the finalising of the next year's council agenda, we weren't council calendar, we weren't able to change those before it came to this council meeting, but we would like to just make those 2 amendments, and then in 2023, just to align them better with the months and spacing out throughout that year. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Rick, I'm not quite sure which Chris you were referring to. Chris Taylor.
Taylor.
Okay, so Chris, you're fully aware and on board with this?
And I don't know if Chris is aware that it does apply to the WDC NRC public transport meeting, which follows as well. Jack's aware of that one. So that will not be happening. That will not be happening in February. It also increases one of those meetings. We only had 3 of those this year. We will now go to 4 to match the RTC, and they will follow the RTC meeting.
Okay, so
we discussed it at the last Whangarei Urban Transport.
Yeah, hang on, Jack. So I'll just get a quick reply from Chris, and then I'll go to Amy and maybe you, Jack.
Yes, sorry, look, I was only briefed about this this morning. It's absolutely fine. As it says in the report, this is a fluid document. If this was the last changes I saw for next year, I'd be very surprised. So it's no concern to me. We can make it happen.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, Amy.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge Chris for pulling together our calendar and for her endless patience with us as we chop and change our meetings throughout the year. So thank you, Chris. It's much appreciated, and we'll do our best to stick with it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Jack, sorry, cut you off.
I was just trying to put that issue to bed. We discussed the marrying the 2 together, well, having them adjacent at the last Whangarei Urban Transport Working Party, and everyone involved was happy. And having an extra meeting is probably a good idea with the rollout of the bus lanes and the Rose Street update next year. So it all fits pretty neatly. I don't have any other concerns, except I do have another matter to raise about the reporting structure.
The reporting?
No, not to do with transport, but to do with the Biosecurity and Biodiversity Working Party.
Oh, okay. All right. So you can do that unless there's any more discussion on the transport one. We'll move on. Jack, you had biodiversity, biosecurity.
Well, I see the structure says that the reporting GM is the biosecurity manager, but we've got staff from 2 different groups reporting there. I'd like to ask Jonathan what he thinks, how he can manage that, because we'll have staff that aren't biosecurity being reporting to that. I don't know if that happens with other working parties.
So you need to know whether it's going to fit with the calendar of meetings.
No, not the calendar of meetings. It's the structure. It's the first chart, not the second chart.
So is it okay? So there's one program of meetings in attachment 1. Has that got 2 parts to it?
So it's meeting type lead GM under review of meeting schedule. It's the first chart. If you see down there, biosecurity and biodiversity working party, it's as the group as the reporting GM as the group manager biosecurity. It's a simple question: how biodiversity's staff going to be able to report, and how are we going to keep the two-way reporting structure for staff that are not biosecurity?
Okay.
And my question is, does that occur with other? I mean, I'm not anticipating it to be a great problem, but I just want to know if it's a precedent. And does that occur with any other GMs in other working parties?
Okay, I see Amy's head nodding. Jono, would you like to provide an answer, or can you, please?
Yeah. Kia ora, Chair. Kia ora, Jack. I think there are other working parties where multiple groups report to those working parties. I suspect Councillor McDonald was about to say climate change has most of the organisation in some shape or form reporting to it. Land and Water working party also has multiple groups reporting to it. I'm very comfortable with the group manager biosecurity being the lead group manager, and that I'll work closely with Don and Lisa to make sure that we can coordinate our agenda topics and still be reporting to the biosecurity and biodiversity working party. You shouldn't notice a difference. We'll just coordinate ourselves behind the scenes and make sure that I think it's just good having one GM being core responsibility for oversight of the working party.
Thanks, John. No further questions, Penny. I'm happy with that.
Okay, all good. Thanks, Jack. So we have an amended number 2 now that we can vote on. All those in favour?
Aye.
No one against?
Aye.
Ooh, bit of feedback there, Rick. Okay, we'll move on to 7.6, 110, submission to Auckland Council on notified sand mining applications. So we could probably take the 2 together. We'll have our mover and second. Thank you, Joss. Seconded Amy. Any questions or discussions? No, it was worked out pretty quickly, and thank you to staff for that. It was awesome and a good result, very good result.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a vote on that then. Recommendations 1 and 2. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. All right. 133 leave provisions. 7.7. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Still there. 133. Sorry, team. BDRT. Okay, so we've got to receive the report and approve the additional 3 days of leave from the 5th to the 7th of January. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you. Sorry, Jack and Amy. Questions or discussions? I really like this idea. Anyone else? Amy.
Just want to speak in support of it and appreciate the management team giving us this opportunity, and that speaks to what Councillor Kitchen was mentioning earlier about our commitment to supporting our staff with their well-being after a pretty challenging year. So kia ora.
Yeah, I think any small bits that we can do to show our appreciation, happy to do.
And Penny, I'd like to tell Toko that also it dovetails really nicely with Bruce's report to the Audit and Risk Committee. So I think it's a fantastic move and happy to defend it and applaud. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Jack. Okay, doesn't look like there's any opposition there. All those, you got Cameron Malcolm, would you like to say something?
No, Chair, take the vote first, then I'll jump in.
All right, all those in favour of recommendations 1 and 2?
Aye.
Carried. Over to you, Malcolm.
Apologies, Chair, I was a bit quick with the clicking of the... Chair, can I just take the opportunity on behalf of all staff just to thank Council for the support that they've given us over the past year, and then in particular for this as a way of recognition. I'm sure the staff will be very appreciative of Council's acknowledgement of the work that they've undertaken during the year by providing them these extra few days leave.
Thank you, Malcolm. Yes, you're very welcome, and that was certainly the bits that I was alluding to or stating at the start of the meeting today. We understand it's been such a difficult year, or 2 years really, and we know how much we rely on our staff to get the job done, and this is a small token of our appreciation. So very happy to do so. It was a great idea from yourself and ELT, of course, as well. Must acknowledge that. Okay, so we'll move on to items 8, operational reports. We've got 8.1 health and safety first on page 136. Could I have a mover and seconder to receive the report, please?
Also move, Madam Chair. Kitchen.
Thank you, Colin. Seconder, Amy, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Sorry, I'm not even looking. Yes, Marty.
I'll just say a comment on the trends downward. Any suggestions as to why that's happening? Is just a really good management and better attitude, or just any factors anybody can throw in there that is making that happen?
Chair, I wish I could report that it was just good management, but unfortunately we've had a number of staff ill this month, and so some of the work that hasn't been able to be completed, and that's why some of the inspections and things like that are down from the levels we would normally expect.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marty, what trends downward were you talking about?
You see on page...
Is it injuries, incidents and hazards?
Yeah, 137. It is trending downwards there. Page 136. Yeah, that's right. Incidents and hazards.
So that the same one you were talking to, Malcolm?
Yes, Chair. I think the fact that we've had a number of our health and safety staff and lower capacity has also led to slightly lower reporting figures.
Okay.
So we hope we don't see a lift when everybody's on deck.
Bruce, and then Amy.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to say those numbers have decreased significantly, and we've just initiated our new health and safety committee. They've got new reps on the committee, and this week there was a quite wide-ranging discussion around the need for the reps to bring up the importance of reporting near misses. So we are trying to highlight that through the organisation. But another factor may be a decrease in speeding events that would have been reported through there previously. We've seen a reduction in those, which is a good trend. But other than that, I don't have any further explanation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Amy, was your hand up?
Yeah.
And then Danny.
Acknowledge the amount of work that has gone on just in recent weeks to understanding the implementation of our work under the traffic light sort of protection framework. I know that there's a huge amount of administration involved in understanding that and then figuring out how the NRC team can work in that new frame that the government has provided. So yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that as a big piece of work that's been done very quickly. So thanks to all involved.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. It's a good point to make. And I see we've just landed with our, I don't know what number iteration of our COVID policy. So well done, team. Danny and then Colin.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. Probably a question for management in terms of page 139, and I'm loath to create another report or metrics, but that the well-being aspect and the pay it forward is a good initiative. I guess I'm probably wanting to know is there a push for a wellbeing metrics, or at least some way of looking at the wellbeing of the organisation. I know that there is that push within central government, whether it be a living standards framework that Treasury announced in October, and there is going to be reporting against that. So the wellbeing aspect of the organisation can be pulled from health and safety and employment data, and at least gives you a way of measuring the wellness of the organisation, and whether or not that was something that was going to be part of that action plan going forward from December in that survey that's being undertaken internally.
Malcolm, would you like to answer that, or Bruce? Bruce.
So Chair, happy for Bruce to kick in as well, but that's actually been, that exact topic's been under quite active discussion over the better parts of the last 6 or 8 weeks, Danny, with the senior management team, and we had about 3 weeks ago, we were considering combining the wellbeing group with the health and safety group, and then just last week we got further feedback from the staff consultation and have decided to keep them as separate groups. So there are pieces of work that are under active consideration, and as Bruce said, we're busy doing a quite comprehensive review and refresh across the whole health and safety and wellbeing organizational structure, the way it's being delivered at the moment. So to take into account the impacts of COVID that we're finding in the organization. Bruce, happy for you to comment more because you're a bit closer.
Thanks, Malcolm. Yes, so we are undertaking the stress survey, but another thing as well is that we are going to come up with some metrics that can help us measure wellbeing, and that's part of the key performance indicators related to the CEO. And I think Council was requested specifically that we provide some metrics. So we are going to work on those and report back to Council on what those metrics are in the near future.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Sounds a good way forward, Danny.
Chair, it's more the fact that central government, pushes something out like this, and it's probably the anticipation, because we, there will be a reporting requirement, not necessarily from us specifically, but that living standards framework has taken into consideration the cultural wellbeing of an organisation. It has touched on the environmental aspect as well, but it hasn't gone into any detail. So I think part of us as an organisation is being able to anticipate the cultural aspect as well as the environmental impact of what we do, but also within the organisation. So it's coming up with a metric that fits for us without surveying the staff to death, but it's trying to reach that balance. And also, I'm conscious of not creating another project or work stream for staff. It's actually taking what's already in existence and trying to at least give the council an understanding of the wellbeing in at least a realistic way.
Thank you, Danny. So, Bruce, you're confident that that's what Danny's indicating is what your work stream is all about?
Correct, Chair. We'll be working along those lines. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Colin Kitchen.
Yeah, thank you. And I think Danny's taken the words out of my mouth there. But just another comment is it's very encouraging to see that the November Health and Safety meeting that our senior management team is encouraging reporting. So, yeah, so those numbers will probably go down in time. But one that I'm really concerned about and is aggressive customers. Our staff, they don't need that, under these COVID times and that. But yeah, that's pretty upsetting. And the other one that sort of that stands out to me is I don't like it is workplace bullying and harassment. Yeah, so and workload stress and that sort of thing. Yeah, but I just applaud you, Bruce, and the team for doing what you're doing. And we're not hiding under these things. We as you say, reporting, getting people to report and whatever, and not paying lip service to this. So well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Good to see that there weren't any aggressive customers in November. or they weren't reported, but I'm sure it was the former. Okay, if there's no further comments there, all those in favour of accepting the health and safety report?
Aye.
Carried. 8.2, the Chair's report to Council. I'll move that that's accepted. Yep, thank you, Amy. Seconder. Any questions on the? Yes, Amy.
Not a question, just a comment to say thanks, Penny. Really good year, and you do a lot of work for us, which we really appreciate. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Cheers. Alrighty, so no further questions. All those in favour? Right, carried. Thank you. 8.3, Chief Executive's report. We could certainly say the same thing with spades for Malcolm, and I'm sure you all will. So could I have a mover and seconder that the report be accepted, please?
I'll move it, Chair.
Thank you, Colin. And oh, so it's Jack and Terry, I think, actually. Yeah, thank you. Questions, comments for Malcolm's report? Yes, Marty, and then Jack. Well, you're on mute, Marty.
Page 172, Malcolm, there's a chart there on rivers with the long-term plan project. It says the Aotearoa Moriwa River, but the only river that I can think of that's going to have a bridge across it is the Kaioi River. Whereabouts is it in the Aotearoa Moriwa?
So we are planning to build a brand new bridge across, and it's not the Aotearoa, it's immediately behind the Aotearoa Moriwa.
All right. Yep. That's in line with diverting the
water from the Aotearoa River down into the wetlands, so it doesn't go through
Moriwa itself. Yeah. Thank you. That answers the question. Thanks.
Okay. Actually, I meant to mention in the highlighted contaminated land management, what a difference. Well done, everyone.
Yeah.
That is awesome to see. I know it took a long time, but no, well done, and quite a relief, actually. Yeah. Who was next? Was it?
Chair, I mean, the kudos for that goes to Colin. He's done the heavy lifting on this thing right through the project, and it's a superb outcome.
Yeah. Just quietly chipping away. Well done, Colin. You got a comment that you'd like to make?
Yes, Chair. I always appreciate praise, but to be honest, I'm only one of a number of people on the governance board of the contract, and the contract was managed by the Whangarei District Council, so I can't take all the credit.
Yes, I tend to think that it might not have got to where it is today without your persistence. So well done.
Thank you.
Jack, you're next, and then Colin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to congratulate the staff and the CE on this report. Firstly, yes, that Colin's news on cleaning up sustainable solvents. What a name! But I'd like to make particular reference to pages 153, 154, the planning report. The amount of work that went into those 2 pages, the amount of work that in that report is just staggering. So I'd like to pass on my thanks to the staff there. But I've got a brief question for Don McKenzie on page 156 regarding access for the goat cull in the Russell State Forest community. I know we were experiencing difficulties in getting access for deer control, but are we also experiencing the same difficulties with private landowners and or the department regarding a goat cull?
Kia ora koutou, and through you, Madam Chair, we have continued to kind of visit landowners through that. So at this point, we haven't had any refusals to enter land to cull goats. That could arise in the future, but it's not a high risk in that particular area. And the request for permissions to enter onto land to cull wild animals, deer and goats, is that currently with the North Island Thomas, and we hope to hear back from her this week or next on progress with that request for delegation given to our.
So I've lost you, Don.
Yeah, you're cutting in a little bit, cutting in and out a little bit there, Don, but I think we got the gist of it. Jack, did you have
well, thank you for the first part. That's good. It's much rosier than the report indicated. But regarding the getting permission from the department, I mean, this issue was highlighted with them over a year ago, and we're not really essentially any further forward. And given that we won't have another biosecurity biodiversity working party meeting until I think it's March, I would anticipate Don reporting back to council at its first at your first opportunity about the results, or otherwise with success in getting that permission from the regional manager. So I mean,
maybe if I could just give a bit of advice there. We have been virtually in weekly contact with the department, and we've got agreement. We've set up a special little project team comprising, and Don is our representative on that project team to try and move this forward. And while I know, again, COVID and the time of the year has meant that we haven't quite had the progress that we were hoping for, my understanding, and Don can pitch in as well, is that it is literally being actively worked on a week-by-week basis at the moment.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. I appreciate the efforts of staff, but you know, councillors and Hapu and the community have become pretty frustrated, and it's certainly, if it hasn't become a reputational issue for the Department of Conservation already, it will. And I suggest that if we don't get some immediate cooperation, that we go straight to the minister. This has been dragging on since long before I was a councillor, and we don't appear to be, apart from some talk and some meetings, we're really no further ahead. And I'm just wondering about the law of diminishing returns, meaning that staff are wasting their time talking to DOC if they're not going to get any further progress, talking to the local staff if we're not going to get progress.
Through you, Madam Chair, I do hope to receive feedback from the North Island manager, as I said, this week or next, and perhaps I could feed back to the chair of the Biosecurity and Biodiversity Working Party progress specifically on this prior to Christmas.
Oh, sorry, Dom, you were clipping when you said North Island Field Manager, so I accept that, that's fine. So I appreciate that you've had the issue elevated, yeah, I look forward to receiving your reply. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Don. Thanks, Jack, and Malcolm too. So we've got Colin, Kitchen, and then Amy.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Chair, I had my hand up from the previous comment I made, so I've now withdrawn it. Thank you. No comments from me.
Oh, good. Thanks, Colin. Amy.
Kia ora, thank you. I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to page 155, where last month we had the report of the blue Indian ring-necked parakeet in Whangarei Heads, and this month we have a happy report that somebody's cat has killed it. So I just feel very proud of the biosecurity efforts being carried out in my local community by people's pets. So yeah, I thought that was a good little story.
Interesting. It wasn't your cat, Amy?
No, I don't have a cat.
Okay. Oh well. I guess everything has its day. Okay. Any further questions? Comments? No. All those in favour of accepting the report? Carried. Thank you. All right.
Good timing.
Oh, you're back, Rick.
Yeah, I was on my phone, Penny, but it was a bit difficult.
Yeah. Oh, good. Hopefully your daughter's all right. 8.4, page 175. We have Reporting on long-term plan 2021-31 performance measures for Q1. We have, okay, so we'll take the report to be received. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Sorry, Rick, and I was thinking I was doing the whole thing, and Jack. Any questions or comments on the report? Okay, all those in favour of accepting the report?
Aye.
Carried. So number 2, that council agreed to change the terms of reference of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee to be the delegated body responsible for reviewing the quarterly reports. Is there a mover and seconder? Would open up discussion. So I'll have Colin and Rick.
Yep, I'll second.
Can I have a staff member speak to why this is being recommended?
Bruce, do you want to take it?
You're on mute, Bruce.
Video to start. No, sorry for the delay. This was a recommendation I was proposing. I think the opportunity of providing a more detailed report to the Audit and Risk Committee on what's happening with the performance of our levels of service enables that subcommittee to do a bit of a deeper dive and have a bit more of a thorough examination as to the performance or lack thereof in relation to our KPIs. And in fact, I think many years ago, it used to be that a function of the Audit and Risk Committee that they received these reports. And we are also suggesting that come August, when we report on the performance of the annual plan, then that report on the key performance indicators comes back to all of council. That's the reason for the recommendation.
Okay. Do we have any of our independents want to comment on the recommendation? Danny.
Chair, I guess it's probably more, are those measures something that council should all be fully aware of and being involved in terms of that deep dive, or is it that the groundwork is to be done through the subcommittee? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, it's actually mine as well. I would have thought it's an all of council thing. Not quite convinced that it isn't. So Bruce, any comments, any further comments?
Yeah, my only other further comment is I think the key performance indicators all tie back to the overall audit oversight function that the Audit and Risk Committee provide. And I think it's inherent that the subcommittee does have a key role in the oversight of the key performance indicators. And in saying that, there's no reason why we can't do that deeper dive at the subcommittee and then simply do the summary report back to council. If that's something that would provide council full oversight as well.
Yeah, that would be my preference. Any further comments from Jack?
Yeah, I think Bruce's explanation is good. Only two little matters. One, if you're not on the Audit and Risk working party, you won't see them. So I guess, I mean, I've made it a personal mission to tune into every one of them now because the last one was so vital and important. But my question is really about biosecurity, which has a separate set of KPIs under a separate piece of legislation. Are you just talking about the KPIs for the annual plan, or are you talking about everything we do?
This report simply relates to the long-term plan KPIs.
Okay, that's fine then. Well, I don't have a problem with it.
Thanks, Jack. So you don't have a problem with it just going to Audit and Risk, that's what you're saying?
No, I think I accept the staff recommendation on that, but given that the biosecurity ones will obviously come to the B&B working party, and there'll probably potentially be other KPIs that'll go to other working parties for other activities that aren't part of LTP, I assume. Would that be correct, Bruce?
Sorry, Councillor Cora, wasn't I paying attention? Could you repeat the question, please?
I assume that because biosecurity has a whole set of KPIs related to its operational plan, which is a statutory responsibility under the Biosecurity Act, which we've established, and we have excellent KPIs which have been reported on. So those will still be subject to oversight by the Biosecurity and Biodiversity Working Party, correct?
That would be correct.
Yeah, right. So my question then is, or second part of the question is, are there other KPIs relating to other activities not part of the LTP that other working groups or working parties will still be able to measure and or the results will be reported to those working parties?
I'm not aware of any. I mean, there's the chief executive's KPIs. I'm just trying to think if there's any others. Not that I'm not aware of any others.
Chair, I think biosecurity is a little bit special in that regard, in that it has its own act, whereas several of the others don't. I think obviously there's some that do, like transport and civil defence, and they would have their KPIs reported up to their committees. But for example, climate change, at the moment, we don't have the same level of rigour and as we would have for biosecurity. But my expectation is that will come over time, particularly now that we've got a strategy in place and staff will start reporting back based on that strategy and the outcomes expected in that strategy. So I think there is a difference to the extent that some are driven by legislation and others aren't, and some programs of work are more mature than others, but so they're not exactly equal.
Thank you, Malcolm. You've highlighted that transport would have KPIs that are reported to the RTC, I suppose, are they? And that aren't necessarily part of the LTP. Is that correct?
That's right, and likewise civil defence would have, and then I mean there also then a whole raft of KPIs that are organisational KPIs that sit deeper in the organisation, that are the more detailed analysis that sits below the LTP KPIs, which sort of bundle up to make the LTP KPIs, and those don't come to governance level at all. Those are dealt with at either at ELT or at a senior management level, depending on the degree of detail in those KPIs.
Thank you, Chair. I'm satisfied because we're talking about LTP KPIs.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Rick and then Colin.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I just think, look, I fully support it. I think Jack mentioned it, that we all have the opportunity to attend all of these subcommittees if we like. It's sometimes, if they do a report to council, we're probably not getting all the information. So we are making discussion, for instance, now on decisions that we may have not sat through the entire process of all those subcommittee reports. So I can't remember Bruce's exact comments, but I liked what he said as a summary, I think, to council in the end. I think that's what you said, Bruce. I haven't got the exact wording here. But I do think, and if Malcolm just mentioned CDM and transport, that works very well. I think in time, obviously, climate change will be the same. It's just so new at the moment in terms of its structure in the council. But I do think it does come down to this trust. And, you know, I myself, being involved with civil defence, with transport, with investment and property, I have faith that people in those other groups are doing their jobs. And I'm very happy to not have to go through the full process at council. I feel it's not necessary, and I have trust in the staff and the councillors on those committees. So I'm very supportive of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rick. I guess Yeah, I think that there should be a two-tier approach here, and I'll just jump in before I go to you, Colin. Sorry. We've got to remember that it's not all councillors will have the opportunity to go to these subcommittees for whatever reason. And we've got public that see this agenda. They don't necessarily look to the audit and risk agenda. We've got TTMAC that gets a copy of this agenda every meeting as well. So for me, it's trust. I have no trust issues at all, but I do have transparency ones. And I think that this is a governance. KPIs are critical to governance, and we need to have good oversight. But I'll go to Colin next, and then Joss.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And as Chairperson Audit and Risk, I do apologise that really I should have brought that up at council only time, which I admitted to do so. So I can feel a bit of unease here. So I would probably recommend that we just let it lie on the table now to the new year, and then we can workshop it and go from there. This may be a compromise at this stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. I'll go to Joss and Justin and see what they're thinking first. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully you can hear my croakiness. So I agree with you, Penny, and I think it's really well, from what you've said, Bruce, to me, your thought process was that it's a deep dive by the subcommittee into the LTP reporting that we would normally get through in our council agenda on a quarterly basis. And I've long since thought it's great having this LTP reporting coming through quarterly to full council, but frankly, I'd really like more information from an audit point of view. So to my mind, it makes sense that what we're actually recommending is that the Audit and Risk Working Party is delegated authority to be able to do a full deep dive on the quarterly reports, whilst the summary is still provided to full council as we have always had it. Now that's kind of how I would see it, and I think that's what you're thinking as well too, actually, Penny, from a transparency point of view. But that's kind of what my thinking was around it, and I don't have a problem with progressing on that basis if that's where we end up. So yeah, that's my only comments.
Thanks, Joss. Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I see the long-term plan as fundamentally an agreement between the northern community, more so the ratepayers, but the whole community and the regional council in terms of, you know, what we've gone out, we've consulted, we've engaged with them, what we're looking at achieving. So I'd prefer this to stay at the whole of council level, but if there's a hybrid model where, you know, perfectly happy for, you know, that deep dive approach for the audit and risk to caucus, caucus, you know, the KPIs, but really, as long as there's some clear reporting at the council level. So a hybrid model I'd support, but yeah, I do want to reiterate that I see it as a whole of council. You know, it's a matter that the whole of council needs to be abreast of.
Thanks, Justin. Marty?
Coming in. Oh, good, I am already on there. I prefer to see the going to the audit and risk as a first cut rather than the deep dive, and that it comes back to council for that oversight. But it certainly has to be in the public eye. So I'd almost suggest that there be a third recommendation added, that it come back to full council.
Thanks, Marty. Amy, you're the only one I haven't heard from, I think. Would you like to comment? Oh, Terry. Sorry, Terry as well. Sorry.
Thanks. I'm fairly comfortable with the approach that Joss was outlining, and I'm not sure if that actually differs much from what Bruce was expecting it how Bruce was expecting it to work anyway. I sit on that committee, so either way I feel confident that myself would get the visibility that I would like. But I can appreciate that concept that we make sure it's well reported in our publicly available documents. So yeah, supporting the way forward, which I think Joss has outlined, but curious to know if that's what Bruce was envisaging anyway.
Bruce.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, no, Councillor McDonald's correct. I support the approach that Councillor Yeoman was mentioning. I think a deeper dive to the Audit and Risk Committee and then a summary report following that to full council would be a good approach.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I was suggesting too. Terry.
I don't have anything to add to that, Chair.
Okay, so looks like Joss, I hate to want to make you talk again, but would you like to amend recommendation 2? Or is it basically what Bruce just said?
So, oh, keep ready. Yeah, I'd say what Bruce just said. Sorry.
Okay, Chris, have you been able to capture that? It's basically a deep dive in the audit and risk, and then a summary back to council, but it would be quarterly.
Yes, that's fine. I wondered if the recommendation just as it stands for number 2, but then just add, provided a summary report goes to council quarterly.
Yeah, because my understanding, what you were saying, Bruce, was that it wouldn't necessarily be quarterly, that it would come to council. It would only be annually, but anyway. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right. So you're happy with quarterly, everyone? I'll second it. All those in favour? Number 2.
Aye.
Anyone against?
Well, I just want to confirm what did Bruce say yearly, did he, in the first place? Did he?
Yes, Bruce.
Yeah, initially I'd said yearly report in August to council, but the change would be a quarterly report.
Okay, so no one's against? Anyone against? Rick, you're looking puzzled.
Well, I just don't know if we need a yearly report, that's all. I mean, a quarterly report, you know.
So are you against?
Yeah, I'm against, thanks.
Okay. All right, it is carried, however. All right, we'll move on to items 9, receipt of committee minutes and working party or group updates on page 177. So we have receipt of committee minutes, audit and risk.
Oh, I'll move those. 3.
I'll second, Kitchen.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to you, Colin, to give an update on audit and risk.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll probably just take the report as read. I'm just, I've got my glasses on here. Yeah, we had quite a lengthy and very productive meeting, and I don't think anything really sticks out. There was a couple of items that we were going to carry on in workshop in the new year, so we'll carry on and do that. But any other committee members got any comments here?
No.
Any comments or questions?
No.
No.
No. So, thanks everybody, and as I say as chair, you are most welcome to tune into our meetings, and you know, it's a very, very important function within our council, and yeah, so if you keep your ears to the ground, and if you tune in, you know what is going on. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. And yeah, the one of the bigger items was the COVID-19 impacts on the work program, which was delivered.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, and I think I've alluded to is a safety and well-being of our staff. That was a real big impact on this meeting, and I'd like to say as chair, we care about our staff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Danny, any comments from you?
No, Chair, nothing.
Okay. All right, thank you. Investment and Property Subcommittee minutes or meeting, Rick.
Right. So you'll see it all tabled there regarding the amendments in terms of shifting money around the fund. So I don't think we need to question that. I'm sure Stuart might comment on that. Obviously, Kensington is completed, and I do get a warm, fuzzy feeling, Malcolm, when I drive past that building every time. So thank you for your hard work on that, and also Phil. It's awesome to see. It's awesome for Whangarei. And then if we go to that final item on the industrial area, I can't tell you how much it pleases me that that area has roared ahead since leaseholders have been able to purchase their properties, and it's looking better every day, and it's looking livelier, and it's pumping. So well done to all involved in that. I certainly wasn't involved in the early stages, but it's looking fantastic. I know there's a couple to go, but it's looking really good. In terms of investment, further investment, we are going to meet in January just to discuss the markets. We did have a meeting yesterday, but felt it was a bit early, so we cancelled that one. We've initiated, I guess, this review of before council kicks into gear. So we're meeting on in the early January just to review really what the Christmas New Year period has done to the markets. I spoke to Jonathan yesterday. He's surprised at it's not as bad as it could be, but it is definitely on the wane. So I think our meeting afterwards, after Christmas, will just put us in good stead for the upcoming year. And we should, by our first council meeting, we should have a very good steer on where the investments and the markets are going. Happy to take any questions on that one. On regional transport, it's a bit out of date now because we have just passed the public transport plan, and we've also gone to those 4 meetings a year. So we had very good discussion on that. And I know that either through myself or through Penny, I think all councillors get the Waka Kotahi update now, which you should be getting. My suggestion tonight is don't go near the roundabout. They're trying to finish it off for the rush tomorrow. So it's going to be chaos there from about 7 p.m. if you can avoid it. Thank you, everybody. And I think that covers off just having a quick look at any more minutes. No, that's very good. Thank you.
Okay, I think there's a question or comment from Jack.
It's not a question, actually. Thank you. Just pointing out a wee typo on page 184.
Oh, where's that? 184.
184, the second item down, it's moved by a mysterious councillor. Now, I'm pretty sure it was you, Rick, not me. The first one was me and Penny. The third one was me and Penny, but I'm pretty sure the second one was you and Penny.
Which item is that?
Page 184, that's the INP, Investment Property Subcommittee Action Sheet, item 5.1, says move Stolwork Raw. So I think I'm pretty sure that should be Stolwork.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
I think I don't think Penny and I moved all three. I'm pretty sure you did do the second one. It's just a typo.
Okay.
Thanks, Jack.
So
thank you.
Perhaps with that.
I don't know if Stuart wants to. Stuart has had we've had quite a detailed discussion on a number of things over the last 6 months, really, since the last meeting. So, and again, I do ask you, if you're very keen to attend those meetings, please do, because we do go into the deep dive in them. Thank you.
Yeah. And just remember that some of it's confidential, some of it isn't. Stuart, did you want to comment?
Oh, just to add that there has been some more step backs and, sort of discussions around, shall we say, the big picture and what that big picture is looking like on a go forward, and how that might or might not interrelate with sort of council objectives into the new year, and those are ongoing. I mean, we're I think even this afternoon we're going to have a workshop that's going to be an interesting one, that has significance around the way that council manages its investments across the whole sphere, not just the externally managed funds, but other important ones as well. So I just support what Rick has said, that some of those conversations into the new year are going to be they're deliberately big picture, because there is such a massive moving parts out there.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Right, so we've moved and seconded those reports. Could everyone in favour of accepting them? Against? Carried. So we'll move on to working party updates and chairperson's briefing, page 190. And first up, so we'll have a move and seconded that they be received, please. Moved Justin, seconded Marty. We'll go to all that. Yeah, go to climate change. Sorry, it's lunchtime. Way to go, Amy. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling through to get to the right page. Yep, I'll take it as read. We had a good meeting. We are in a bit of a time of change. We have some vacancies that we are holding, which I understand the recruitment is underway now. Yeah, just working away on implementing the climate change strategy for NRC, and also there was a submission that we were providing to central government. Yeah, so it's a good meeting, and one of the actions there, which I'm very pleased about, is that the Biodiversity and Biosecurity Working Party are going to have a look at the strategy from their workspace perspective and consider what that means for their programs of work. And that to me is a really important demonstration of how we need to work into the future, that this isn't really a kaupapa that needs to be driven by the climate change working party and the small number of staff that we have. It's about it being across the organisation and everybody understanding their part of the big jigsaw puzzle. So yeah, thanks to those staff who will be doing that work, and we look forward to seeing that all come to fruition. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for climate change? No. All right, so I think I've got this right. That was the only working party that met between meetings. So all those in favour of accepting that report?
I've got to TMAC as well, Penny. Oh,
it's not on the... TMAC's not on the list, is it, Chris?
Yes, it is. It's on page 2. It was the meeting that was held on the 14th of October.
Oh, sorry, Marty. Sorry,
okay.
Carry on.
No, it's pretty well explanatory there, Penny. Just a huge workload, which is real. I'm really pleased with the attendance at the TMAC meetings. It's full on, which to me shows real buy-in by tangata whenua and good relationship building. I'm pleased with the way it's going, but as I say, that workload that's being dumped on the MTAG camel straw by straw is it's just going to be interesting to see how much can be taken by them, where they just spread themselves too thin. So it's that capacity building for them, which Malcolm and ELT are well aware of. So how do we get that to work best? I suppose that bring on 2022 and be able to address that.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Any questions for Marty? Comments? No. Okay, so sorry about that, Marty. All those
okay.
In favour of accepting the climate change and TTMAC? Okay,
right.
Thank you. Carried. So now we'll move on to the working group updates. And we have mover and seconder, please. Justin, moved. Yep, thank you. Seconder, Amy, thank you. Tamariri Flood Management Working Party, Justin.
Yeah, things are progressing well. We had a very good hui on a Saturday, probably a month ago. That was fairly well attended by members of the community. And I really just want to acknowledge Joe Camuso and his team, Doug Foster, and also, forgive me if I get the name wrong, is it Shantez?
Shantez, yeah.
Shantez, yeah. Shantae, sorry. She's doing some fantastic work above and beyond the call of duty, really engaging with that community and getting some fantastic outcomes. So, yeah, particular mihi to her. Yeah, and I think it's progressing well time-wise, and just happy to see that things are progressing there.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. Any questions for Justin? No. So I'm pretty sure that was the only one. So all those in favour of accepting that report?
Aye.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our public meeting for now, as we'll move into business with the public excluded. I will move all the considerations. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Rick. All those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
So thank you to all those who were attending. We're now going to move into public excluded. And can I suggest that we just have a 5-minute break, please? Chris, is that okay? And we will stop our live streaming. So Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Mel, if you could just stop the live stream, and yes, it's absolutely fine to stop for 5.
Thank you.